Welcome back, wheel fans, to the Gamer Muscle YouTube channel, and welcome to our honest review of Gravel, which came out yesterday on PC, PlayStation and Xbox One. Now, as is the format of these honest reviews, it's essentially just a direct connection to my brain. It's a stream of thought review where we try to get to all the relevant points as fast as possible and as honest as possible. So, without further ado, let's get on with it. The first question everybody always wants answering when it comes to game reviews, I mean, you've obviously Googled it because you're thinking of getting it and you want to know if it's a good game. And surprisingly, I actually think it is a pretty decent game. It's not extraordinary, it's not bad, it's pretty decent. I would put this in the bracket of games where if you spent 20 quid or so on it, you'd be really quite happy with it, but it's not going to absolutely blow your face off. And I highly doubt you're going to be talking about this game in 30 years' time to your children. Oh, I was playing Gravel, it changed my life. That's not going to happen with this, I'm afraid. Now what we'll do is we'll meander through good and the bad points and, like as I say, like a slalom skier, and then we get to the end of the video. So we'll start off with a good point, and what really surprised me with this title, bearing in mind that it's more on the arcade than the simulator side, though it's actually surprisingly realistic in many ways, what really surprised me is the physics and handling is genuinely really quite good with this. And we've played it both with the PlayStation 4 controller and a Thrustmaster T300 force feedback wheel. And in both cases, the handling was really nice. It actually has pretty realistic handling. We're sort of talking almost in the dirt rally degree of handling. Not on this sort of Assetto Corsa Project Cars 2 simulation degree of physics and handling, but it's a very consistent handling model, very pliable, really nice with the PlayStation controller to throw the car out, hold it in a slide, balance the rear on the accelerator with your right trigger, or with the gas pedal with your right foot or left foot if you don't know how to use your feet properly. You can use the brake to tilt the car into the corner. You've got all the dynamics there. It's got most of the dynamics that you actually do find in simulators and what you'd actually expect from a real-world car, should you be one of the dude bros in this game that can afford to drive real-world cars. None of us can, so that's why we're playing this game, so it's pointless to make a comparison. What is really nice, though, is you've got assists in the game that you can put on that stabilise the vehicle and will make it drivable for a gamepad, or even with the steering wheel, for people that don't understand how to collect a vehicle, how to counter steer properly, and it makes the game accessible. But for those of us that have played a lot of simulators or have wasted far too much of our time playing driving games, you turn all the assists off and it doesn't feel like the game is really getting in the way. It doesn't feel like you're doing a turn and there's some really horrible, baked, annoying dynamic that just cuts in all the time. It feels like you are on top of the vehicle, you're in control of the vehicle, and regardless of whether or not the specific cars in the game match up with any real-world specific car, it doesn't matter. It feels natural, it feels intuitive, it's absolutely spot on, and to be honest, the handling in this game, for a semi-realistic arcade off-road driver, I would be happy if this was like, this is the benchmark handling model these types of games should use. The physics designer, the car designers, whoever's implemented the car handling in this game, with almost all the vehicles that I've driven so far, a couple of them a little bit wonky, but most of them, whoever's designed that, bang on, spot on job, well done, congratulations. Free Thai back massage from myself. I'll put makeup on and everything. You won't notice that it's a hairless, hairy man giving you a back rub, but you did a spot on job. Give him a pay rise. Give him a pay rise. Good job. It's also worth drawing attention. As I said, we played this with a T300 force feedback wheel. The force feedback is actually really quite nice. You've got the self-aligning there, and that pulls the car or the off-road truck. That's what Americans call them. That pulls the car back in the path of least resistance. It tells you that you've got contact. You can feel on the brake the force feedback load up, so it makes you know that you're pushing the brake, and it makes you know that you might be understeering. And it gives you the details. You need nice rumble there, and you've got the options to be able to turn down the force feedback strength, adjust dead zones, or it didn't have a dead zone or anything by default. But you can adjust the basic settings there on the PlayStation 4 version that we were using. I assume the PC version is pretty much the same. It doesn't have all the settings there that you'd expect from a top-end sim, but for a mostly arcade game, it's got the settings, the main settings that you require. And in this case, T300, plug it in. The only issue was the force feedback was a little bit too strong out of the box, so I just turned it down to 40. I think it was on 60 by default, and that increase the fidelity of force feedback, because if you have too much force feedback on the T300, it starts clipping a little bit and you just lose some detail. So turn that down a touch and away you go. Pretty much plug and play as well with the steering wheel. fantastic. Again, really nice job for what is mostly an arcade game. Personally, I don't think you really need to play it with a wheel. It's easier to play it with a wheel, and it's nice having the force feedback. I actually found it, just the convenience of using a gamepad and just how snappy and nippy a gamepad is, and the fact that the cars are really nice and controllable with a gamepad. I personally would just play this with a gamepad rather than bothering with the whole sim rig setup. But if you wanted to do that and you like to approach it in a more sim-like way, you could do that. It accommodates it. So that, again, that's nice. So the actual, as I say, the first good point, the physics, the general physics, bearing in mind it's more on the arcade side, the handling, the force feedback, that is all done really well. First slalom to the right, Winter Olympics, congratulations. We haven't run over any squirrels yet. Onto the first bad point. And right, I was playing this on the PlayStation Potato, not the PlayStation Pro Potato. We're talking bog standard mouldy potato here. And the frame rate at times in this game, especially on the stadium levels, especially when you come around the corner and you can see most of the stadium, is just unacceptable in my mind. If you're playing this on PC, I'm sure frame rate won't be that big of an issue. If you've got anything other than a mid-end system, I'm sure frame rate, unless there's something massively wrong with the game, but this is Unreal Engine, unless there's something massively wrong with the game, frame rate shouldn't be an issue. But it's worth bearing in mind, if you're on the Potato PlayStation, there's going to be times in this, especially stadium levels, where the frame rate is it goes to like 12 FPS. It feels like I was playing an N64 game, without any fog granted, but it really did feel like a true retro, pure cinematic experience. And I mean, it's nice to savour the graphics at times, but I really don't want to be delivered one frame every half hour. I quite like at least 60 frames a second. Call me high demanding as a player, but come on, guys. Hopefully they patch that out, because it's just, I don't think that's acceptable. And as I say, we're not talking a little bit of frame jumps occasionally. We're talking this is really affecting the handling and potentially ruining your race. So it is worth saying, though, it's more of a problem on the stadium level specifically, and specific corners on the stadium levels. On the more open world levels and most of the levels in the game, you do seem to be hitting at least 45 FPS. At least. I mean, I didn't have an FPS counter, so we're playing this on PlayStation 4. I'm not sure if it was a constant 60 FPS. It certainly didn't feel like it. But for the most part, at least the frame rate on the PlayStation doesn't drop below anything that affects gameplay, but the stadium levels do. So keep that in mind. More optimizations would be nice, but what are you going to do? I mean, I bet the developer's just gone, oh, well, it's the peasant potato. We'll just support the Pro and PC properly. We'll forget about the peasant potato. It's just too hard to develop for these days. In which case, sell it for cheaper on that console. They won't do that. Onto a middle gate. It's neither a right or left-hand slalom gate, because this is a sort of positive and a negative. The graphics and the actual graphical quality of the game. I have to say, actually, it is sort of middle of the road. In some places, the graphics aren't particularly anything to sing home for. I mean, some of the car models are a little bit bland, a little bit lower detailed, especially if you compare the car models to stuff like Forza, GT Sport, Assetto Corsa, Project Cars 2. There's clearly not the same sort of detail in a lot of the car models in the game. They don't look awful, though. It's not a detraction from the gameplay. It's not a problem. They just don't. You don't look at the cars and go, "Oh my god, my eyes are burning from pixel joy." That's not going to happen with this. But I mean, the Abarth looks nice. You can't go wrong with an Abarth. Once you've got an Abarth, you've done 10 out of 10 game, perfect graphics. You could just have a cube, put the Abarth logo on it. 10 out of 10 graphics. Other than the Abarth, though, the cars, they definitely don't look as good as some of the other titles out there. But the road textures are nice, and let's just call attention to the beautiful, glorious grass and flowers on some of the stages. Really, really beautiful implementation of grass, and of course they've used speed trees, so we've got a nice variation in trees. The foliage and grass in this game is quite nice, and I do appreciate good grass in games. So 10 out of 10 for the grass. Some of the dirt as well looks particularly nice. The snow underneath the car looks really nice. You leave like a tyre tread marks through the snow, and really stand out graphically are the wet stages and the reflections on the more rainy British-like levels or tracks, where you've got the LED signs and stuff, and just stuff reflecting off the rain. and puddles. That looks absolutely extraordinary. Really, really impressive, the reflections in this from the floor. So, some really nice textures, some really nice grass. Car models kind of acceptable. You do notice on the Mouldy Potato PlayStation a fair bit of popping from shadows coming up, and you do notice the grass popping in. You also notice that they've gone a little bit overboard with post-processing effects, and it kind of does feel like you're a bit of a pensioner that's somehow managed to put Vaseline in your eyeballs. If you're maybe 2 meters away from your TV, that might not be a problem, but if you're sat close to your TV, you'll think that you've got some disorder and you might waste money going to the optician. Don't worry, it's just a developer going mental with post-processing effects. You also do notice some anti-aliasing. On PC, I would have thought that won't be a problem. You could run it at a higher resolution. You could run anti-aliasing better. And on the PlayStation Pro, I would have thought they'd also up the graphics a bit. So, again, a consideration if you are running a mouldy PlayStation versus if you've got an actual machine that can run games. So to encapsulate our thoughts on the graphics, I say at times it looks really nice. For the most part, it's fairly generic. It's acceptable. Again, you're not going to tell your children, and you're definitely not going to tell your grandchildren about the graphics in this game, but you're probably not going to complain to them about it either, so it is what it is. Let's take a cheap Ryanair flight to Spain and enjoy the sunshine with another positive point, and that is the menu system, structure and layout of this game. Now, I know some people will be like, what, you're mental, that's not important, that's not really something to bring to our attention in a review, but hallelujah, this game doesn't try to be ridiculous with the menus. Everything's very clearly presented. You go into the single player mode, there's stuff that's locked, you do races, you unlock cars, you unlock tracks, you progress through it. It's really obvious how far you've got, how much is to go, what you need to do to unlock it. You have a star system, you do levels, you come first, you get 3 stars, you come second, you get 2, and you come before 5th, you get 1. It's just super obvious. It's that super generic arcade format of unlocking content and going through things. The menus themselves are really slick in that you can quickly browse through things. You don't have to wait for stuff to load particularly. The individual cars that you unlock are represented by 2D graphics, and you can slide through them, and then it puts a 3D car on the screen, which you can rotate around, admire it, look at its details. It's not spectacular, but it's not trying to distract you with some elaborate convoluted menu system. For whatever reason, a lot of games coming out these days are sort of in this 90s webpage design mindset when it comes to the menus, where the menu has to essentially be a game in and of itself. No, just keep it nice and simple. Keep the menu as a easy to access the content interface, and then have the game be good and be the interactive part. It's not hard, but a lot of developers mess it up. Milestone did a good job here. Well done. I'm impressed with that. It's also worth saying the load times are really good in this. At no point, as I say, on the Mouldy PlayStation, did I feel like I'm dying of old age, loading the stages or restarting a stage or going to the rewind function or moving in and out between menus and things. Loading, really slick, really fast, really good for a more arcade title where you're going to be retrying stuff and trying to better your times and all that kind of stuff. So again, really good job on the loading times, really good job on the basic menu functionality. 10 points to Gryffindor. Oh no, the Ryanair plane is just hit at bird strike, and we just crashed into the ground at 400 miles an hour. Everyone's dead. Commentary in this game, I say commentary, the narrator in this game, Jesus, Lord Jesus of Nazareth. Why?
If you didn't faint watching this race, you're used to strong emotions. The meeting is next week, always and only here on Gravel Channel.
I mean, granted, the guy that's doing it sounds really enthusiastic. He's probably got some payment from a games company to do commentary. He's done an alright job with what he's been told to do, clearly. But it is so annoying the way they've presented it as if it's a bloody radio station again. It's not quite dude bro level annoying. There's little cut video clips for that aspect. They've made sure to put that in. You've got to make sure you can sell this game to 12-year-olds. I guess that's the demographic that the market research people are targeting. I understand that. They've got to make money off it. 12-year-olds are a good target to exploit. Well, 12-year-olds' parents when they go into Sainsbury's. I'm just going to go and get some milk. Oh, young Timmy's looking for a video game. This racing game looks fun. I'll get that for young Timmy, and young Timmy will be happy, and he'll forget that I'm a terrible parent. That's how half the games industry works. Anyway, the dude bro aspect, at least you can skip those videos and just laugh at the photographs of the drivers, the rivals. But the commentary, well, you can turn it off, and we did very quickly. But they've got this sort of gravel radio thing, or whatever's going on there, and it's just atrocious. As I say, you can mute it, so it's not the end of the world. But when you do mute it, then things kind of start feeling a little bit disjointed. So I think the problem is the way they've tied this game together is more by using this idea that you're beating these pro drivers and they're your rivals, and the commentary, and that's how they're sort of presenting your progress, or one of the aspects that they're presenting the progress in the game. That doesn't work, and it's just annoying. For me it is. I'm an old, bold guy, so maybe it works fantastic for the demographics. So if you're 12-year-old and you like this, ignore what I'm saying. But if you're miserable, old, drink too much tea, and ruined your life already, then this will probably really annoy you. What I personally think doesn't get tired when you get older and miserable is when the reward mechanics are more focused on unlocking new environments, unlocking new vehicles, and making sure those vehicles and environments are actually exciting and interesting to unlock, and presenting them to the player in a way that's exciting, interesting, and makes them really want to unlock that content. A perfect example, and now I'm going to age myself, is the way you unlock content in something like the old Burnout games, the Burnout World Tour, where you would see a vehicle and you'd be like, oh god, there's a Formula car there. Oh, I can do this event, and I can then do that, and then I've unlocked that Formula car. That'll be amazing. And then you've got an anticipation there for getting a cool vehicle that you can then use in other stuff. Or there'd just be another vehicle that just looks really nice that you want to get, that you can then use to do other levels with. But it's all about presenting that desirable content, making that content desirable, and actually having the content have some, it's faster, or it's visually very distinguished, or, something about it that makes it desirable. Split Second is another perfect example where every time you unlock a new car, even though there's not that many cars in the game, it feels like a really big progression to unlock those vehicles, and they're really nicely modelled fantasy vehicles in Split Second. It makes you want to progress through it, even though there's no real single player story there of any kind. It's just satisfying unlocking that type of content. And really, actually, I'm just pulling out the body parts from the plane wreckage here. That's really the downfall of Gravel when it comes to its presentation as a single player arcade game, in that the handling is really fun, the general driving is really fun, some of the stages are quite nicely designed. It is genuinely, at a basic level, the interaction is actually quite fun to play, but it doesn't really, it's just not encapsulated properly, and you kind of lose interest in wanting to keep playing it and completing it after, I'd say, about 4.5 hours or so of gameplay. It was at about 4.5 hours into it I started feeling like, well, you know what, I can't particularly be bothered to unlock any new stuff. There's no real anticipation, other than if you're 12 years old and want to beat those rivals, or you're one of those people that likes to bang a plank of wood and bricks against your forehead and have to get all the trophies and complete stuff, and you don't really care about what the game is or what's going on. You just want to complete it as a completionist. I think completionist gamers and 12-year-olds will particularly like this. But for anyone looking for that really solid, fully polished, rounded off, tell your grandchildren about it, arcade racer game, obviously this is not it. And the single player structure is rather lackluster in that sense. Let's the wreckage is now burst into flames. There's a fuel fire and the corpses are now burning. Multiplayer. I say the word multiplayer as if it's there. It is in the game. It does actually appear to have some nice multiplayer modes like capture the flag and different events and things. And the game, from the gameplay, would actually be really fun to play in multiplayer. When I've tried to play multiplayer on this, there was no one there. I had one person to try and do capture the flag with for about half an hour. Other than that, I couldn't find a multiplayer game, so I haven't really been able to test it properly. It seemed to work with that one other person, and it looked like the modes were there and the voting and stuff would make it actually quite a fun multiplayer game, but it seemed to be dead online. So that's a shame. And what I think is a real shame, and what I think would have absolutely bailed this game out massively, and even made up for the bland single player structure, is if this had a split screen mode so you could play through the game with a friend, or just do stuff offline with friends and do the multiplayer modes with friends. That would make this 100 times better as a game. And it would make it a game that I would just say to everyone, get to play with your friends, because it's a type of game that's suited to sitting around TV with your friends and playing with friends and just having a really good time racing them and going through stuff in it. It's totally suited to that. It really has that sort of arcade, you know, when you've got like the old Daytona cabinets in the arcade or Sega Rally where they're connected together and you're racing against your friends. The mechanics and everything, the way it accommodates different players, the nature of the tracks just totally fit that. And I even got a sort of vibe from that old 4x4 Nitro 2D game on the SNES, where this is a 2D game, so obviously it plays nothing like that. But I just got that, it has a real retro feel to playing this. Sort of Sega Rally retro game feel that I really quite like that character, but you just weren't able to exploit it because it didn't have split screen multiplayer support, and the multiplayer online is pretty much dead, or seemed to be when I was playing this at launch. So it's a real shame, because that would have elevated this from being an average game that's got well executed underlying mechanics to something I'd say, oh, this is a really good game to play with your friends. So massive missed opportunity, probably again to do with the PlayStation moldy potato being underpowered, but there you go. I mean, there's really not that much more to say. I guess you will have got the gist of it from what we've said so far. Not nice and fun in many ways to play, but just lackluster. It feels very much like it should be a budget game. It's a bit cheeky to sell this as a full retail title. Aspects of it are of the quality of full retail title, but it just doesn't come together as a final product. Honourable mentions that I haven't gone into depth. The artificial intelligence in this is actually quite satisfyingly done. The rubber banding and the catchment stuff is done in a way that's not annoying and doesn't look artificial. The AI aren't annoying in terms of how they drive against you. You know, they don't just take you out arbitrarily. And they put up a good fight though, and they do make moves. So they've done a really good job with the artificial intelligence. I say all the core driving stuff in this is fantastic. It's just the overall structure and then the way the content's progressed and delivered. Also, the vehicles in the game, the different vehicles handle nicely differently, and you do notice it. You do notice a different force feedback. You do notice a different approach in them. Again, core handling and all that stuff, absolutely fantastic. Just the overall packaging. So, you know, as always, as I say with these off the cuff direct link into the Gamer Muscle Brain reviews, I tried to keep it as honest and as down to earth as possible. I probably missed stuff, but what I say is, just drop a comment. Drop a comment with your question. I will try my best to answer it, and then you'll be filled to the brim with knowledge, gravel knowledge, and you'll be able to gravel countryside paths, and old people will be able to walk on them. You're a citizen of the world now. Don't forget to subscribe if you like this sort of thing. You like sim racing, virtual reality, and flight simulators. Don't forget to tickle the like button if you like this. Dislike it if you disliked it. Also remember, we've got Amazon affiliate links, and that keeps us trapped in the sim rig. We also live stream, so if you're subscribed, you'll get notified when we live stream. And there you go. That is indeed our honest review of Gravel. Till the next video, take care, happy driving, goodbye.